Thank you to CAI and to everyone that is joining us here today. I appreciate you spending your time with me today, and I hope to make it a high-impact experience. So I'll tell you a little bit about experience with PMOs through this, but I definitely would love to hear from all of you, whether it's through questions on the call today or I will show you how you can get in touch with me. I definitely want to hear about your pain, your frustrations, but also your successes, what things are working for you, and if and how this program is helpful to you after you've seen this content today. I will also show you how to get a copy of this sent right to your inbox so that you can have all of these tips and tricks as well as a free template available to you to use today in your office to go get it done. First and foremost, though, I'd like to spend a minute with you guys thinking through the name PMO. When you hear someone say PMO, you probably have some kind of an emotional reaction. Whether it's positive or negative, the term PMO and what it stands for tends to elicit some emotion in people, some happy, some frustrated, some exhausted, exasperated, some confused. Maybe you even see some blank stares, or maybe it's what's keeping you up at night. Ultimately, though, there's so much we put behind the name PMO, and what is most interesting is that it doesn't mean the same thing to everybody. But sadly, what's happened over the last many years, since PMOs have become more popular, it's become the something shiny that everybody wants to try, and we're not really sure if it's actually getting the results that it was intended to deliver in the first place. And in some cases, you will actually see leaders put in place what they call anything but a PMO. You'll hear business leaders say, I need an organization that's going to help me deliver on my strategic initiatives, and whatever you do, don't call it a PMO. Well, why is that? Why is it that so many business leaders are saying that, they don't want a PMO, but they tend to want all of the services that we all know and love that a PMO would provide? And I think it has to do with a sad mistake that we've all made in what we've done with the PMO, or several mistakes that we've made in what we've done with the PMO that have caused a lot of business leaders to shy away from wanting to engage in the quote-unquote PMO. We hear a lot about it's process heavy, too many tools and templates and forms I have to fill out and things I have to check off in order to be able to actually get my project done. And so what they'll do is they're thinking that somehow that the name of the PMO and the concept around the PMO is not actually what they need. So they'll put something else in place, like, I've heard business transformation office, strategic execution office, strategy realization organization. There's all kinds of things we can call it, but if we don't actually change what it does to deliver those high-impact results for people, then we're just changing the name but not the game. And often that's what we see, is that you'll see these organizations masking themselves as something else, but still they're doing the same old things the PMO was doing that got us in trouble in the first place. Way too much time on templates and process and not being able to clearly articulate and measure the outcomes that we've generated as an organization, not tied to or connected to the business strategy. I mean, the challenges have been endless. But so we've got a whole history of the PMO, and it started off well, and then it got a little too heavy, or wasn't meeting the business objectives, or the results weren't getting delivered. And so we said, okay, well, we still need the intention of the PMO, so we're going to call it something else. Now, I don't know about you, but I think of doing the same thing over and over again and just changing the name is a little bit like insanity, right? Doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So what I believe we have to do is think about the concept of the PMO, and it really doesn't matter what you call it, it's what it's doing and what it's delivering that's going to make the biggest impact. So instead of worrying about what we call it, why don't we think a little bit differently about what it does and why we do it in the first place? I believe that when we start a PMO, we have really good intentions. Why do we do the whole PMO thing anyway? Well, oftentimes it's because we're having a reaction to failed projects. Things aren't going well, business results aren't being achieved, and somebody heard or somebody gets the idea or somebody gets hired to go build an organization that's going to change that. Or to just improve the project performance we already have, or there's been a disconnect and we really need to align with our strategy for the organization. And ultimately, the reason we're doing it is because we're trying to maximize business impact. All of that's great. That's great that we're doing those kinds of things and that intentions are in the right. But then we end up with an organization that has a lack of clarity or focus. We build an organization where the value proposition isn't clear. It's not 100% clear why the PMO was put in place, or that gets lost along the way, and you have people with very different ideas and intentions about what the PMO should accomplish. And any of you that are in or have built a PMO in your organization, I am sure that you have come across this, where there were very differing expectations about what the PMO should do, and that may not even be what you had in mind when you were putting it together in the first place. We often start out really well with somebody saying, okay, we need a PMO, and we get oftentimes one person becomes the PMO. They hire one person or they reallocate one person and give them, if they're lucky, 100%, but maybe even not, of their time to start putting together a PMO. And sometimes that's your best case scenario, and it just goes downhill from there. Sometimes you're lucky to have been given 50% of your time to start putting these things in place, and then a few months later, you don't even see your executives at all. That sponsor that helped you start the PMO is completely gone onto something else, something more interesting, something more exciting, or something that is requiring their urgent business attention. And now you're stuck there by yourself without that executive support that you had in the first place. And ultimately, the reason a lot of that happens is because there's not a direct link created to not just projects getting done, but business outcomes. How are we connecting what we do with the PMO to actual business results that can be touched and felt and measured and realized as a result of the PMO being in place? When that link, and it's not that those business outcomes aren't there, but if we aren't connecting that link to the work that we're doing, or talking about those outcomes, or measuring things that are measurable so that we can get to the attention, support, funding, and focus that we need, then we're going to lose momentum and steam. So said, a lot of people say, you know what, I think it's just too late for the PMO. I don't think the PMO is going to work in our organization. We'll do anything but. So now we've gone from, we called it a PMO and it wasn't delivering the way we needed, or we didn't think it was delivering. A lot can be lost in communication or lack thereof. And then we called it something else and then just kept doing the same things over and over again, and that didn't work. So forget it. We don't need a PMO at all. We're just going to let everybody manage their projects in their separate parts of the organization and avoid all that heavy process a PMO would bring to the table. Okay, so many organizations and leaders are saying that. But I think there's a different conversation we should be having. It's not about to PMO or not PMO. It's about how we go about delivering the highest business impact possible for the organization. If you are generating impact for the organization, you will build a sustainable and invaluable resource